with the slides that Ted's going to use. And then feel free to ask questions at any time in chat if you're more comfortable with chat, or if you want to come off mute, you can ask questions anytime, and then we'll leave time at the end, hopefully, to answer more questions. So just a couple things about ESA before we get started. We have, over the past 6 years, we've partnered with ADP to build this executive community of over 2,000 participants in 20 cities, delivering world-class disruptive thought leadership monthly, and also exposure to innovative technologies that are shaping the future of work. And we're unique in that we bring CHROs, CIOs, and other work tech executives together because we believe that they all must be in lockstep with each other to deliver the kind of worker experience necessary to attract and retain talent, especially now. So we also encourage executives, and this is kind of a uniqueness for us, our networks. We encourage executives to stay involved in the ESA network, even as they make a change in their careers, by offering a board positioning membership that helps executives with their board journey. And we've added partnerships that help executives develop what I'm calling now a portfolio lifestyle, thanks to Bob Kellner, I think he's on, including startup advisory roles, working with PE firms and venture capital firms, and if they prefer not to continue in a full-time executive role. So we are honored today, and I mean honored, Ted's resume is unbelievable, to have with us today Ted Bililies, partner and managing director of Alix Partners. He's an internationally recognized expert on leadership and organization development. He advises investors, CEOs, and boards globally to help them select the right leaders for key roles and position those leaders and their teams for value creation. He is often consulted on challenging succession issues and when boards of directors need to make a strategic leadership change. Serving 3 decades as a business psychologist, performance coach, human resources executive, and management consultant, Ted is also on the executive education faculty of the Harvard Business School. So joining Ted as guest executives today, we do this a lot in our thought leadership events. We bring in guest executives. We have Ashley Nelson, CHR of True Manufacturing in St. Louis, and Mo Gid, VP of HR at the Greater Omaha Packing Company. Ashley is an innovative, results-driven leader with the overall responsibility of strategy, operations, and development for the entirety of the human resources function, and she currently serves as a member of the executive leadership team reporting to the CEO as a trusted thought leader that supports both domestic and global business initiatives. Mo is a trilingual HR professional passionate about mentoring and equipping employees to succeed and find joy in their work. And he brings extensive years of human resources and operation experience with global food organizations such as Tyson Foods, JBS USA, and today he serves as Vice President of Human Resources of the 5th largest beef producer in the US, Greater Omaha Packing. So with that, you guys, I'm going to turn it over to Ted. Ted, it's all yours.
Great. Well, thank you, Cindy, and thanks everybody for attending. It really is an honor and a privilege to be invited to be here and to be the moderator of this really incredible panel. Ashley, I've gotten to know Ashley and Mo, and they're just wonderful. So hopefully we will start a discussion today with all of you, but you will add your questions and participate in this discussion, and really about embracing the workforce in a digital world. I mean, that's really what we're here to discuss. I wonder if, before we get started, if it might be helpful for Ashley and Mo just to talk a little bit about their companies, for those of you who aren't familiar with True Manufacturing or Greater Omaha Packaging. Can we do that for just a minute or two? Ashley, do you want to go first?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Honored to be here. Ashley Nelson with True Manufacturing Company. We are a family-owned, privately held manufacturer. We manufacture commercial refrigeration units as well as high-end residential units as well. So pretty much if you look behind any bar at your favorite restaurant or in their kitchen, or if you're checking out at Walmart or Target of the like, and you pass those beverage coolers on your way out, those are our coolers. We've been in business since 1945. We currently manufacture everything out of 4 different locations in the state of Missouri and have over 4.2 million square foot of manufacturing space, although we do have offices all over the world and support customers both globally and domestically as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you, that's really helpful. Mo?
Yes. Hey, good morning, everybody. And again, same as Ashley, I'm honored to be here with you guys. So Mo, head of HR here at Greater Omaha Packing. It's a privately owned organization that's been in the business for over 100 years. It's the 5th largest beef processor in the country. I guess what's unique about us is all of the beef that we make, it's sourced out of Nebraska. So the quality is there, and that's really what we are known for. We export to over 30 countries around the world. If you ever had some fancy steak in a fancy restaurant, whether in the East Coast or even overseas, there is a very, very high chance that you may have had our steak. Please don't confuse us with our competitor, Omaha Steaks. Their quality is not the best, and we take pride in that. And again, we are here in Omaha. Most of our producers are here in Omaha. We employ about 1,600 people. And really, if you want to, I guess, research us, just really head to a fancy restaurant and enjoy some fancy steak, and you won't be disappointed.
Great, thank you. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm starting to get a little bit hungry early in the day. So is everyone clear about how they can submit their questions? Because I really meant what I said earlier. We want to get as much participation here as we can. So if you're not clear, just speak up, but it's just putting your questions in the chat. I thought as a way of stimulating discussion, I might just share a couple of slides, and then we'll start talking about them, and then hopefully you'll all be participating as well. Erin, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what I'm going to be sharing with all of you today, just for the next 4 or 5 minutes, comes from a couple of sources. Alix Partners is a global management consulting firm. We've been in business for 43 years. Some of you may know us. We get brought in with big, large scale, oftentimes very urgent, holistic organization transformations. And so we are looking at every aspect of the organization and helping them transform. In this age of disruption, with all of the disruptions that we're facing, we've been in many cases oversold. In many cases, there's so much change that's needed in organizations. We've been working overtime. Part of how we judge the landscape globally is we've created this disruption index a couple of years ago that we now repeat on an annual basis. This disruption index samples over 27, 28, almost 3,000 C-level executives around the world. So I just wanted to share some information and some of those findings to stimulate discussion. So it's no big surprise that CEOs are under a tremendous amount of pressure to navigate a really, really volatile business landscape. Whether we look through the social, the ESG lens, we look through the diversity and inclusion lens, we look through an economic lens. To say that we're in a time of extreme change is such a laughable understatement. I think we could all agree to that. So here's some data from our 2023 study, which kind of hot off the press, first quarter of 2023. 78% of these 3,000 C-level executives reported being seriously disrupted in the last 12 months. Their businesses are seriously disrupted. And this is up 10 points from the 2022 disruption index. 85% of CEOs kind of confessed, which disruption do I prioritize? What do I address first? Do I address digitization? Do I address people and talent and D&I? Do I address AI? Do I address all of the economic pressures on my business? And 75% of those same leaders worry that their companies are not adapting fast enough. So you get the picture. Multiple disruptions, CEOs and senior leaders being under extreme pressure to the point that they're really asking firms like Alix Partners, in many cases, where should I go first? Next slide, Erin, please. More than 75% of CEOs are saying that they are facing a near unmanageable degree of disruption. A lot of that is coming from labor shortages. So 80% of the sample said that they fear that labor shortages that they're currently experiencing may become permanent. And many of you know that we've enjoyed, not just in North America, but also globally, we've enjoyed for 6 consecutive decades a growing labor market. That labor market is now shrinking for the first time in more than 60 years. So labor's at a premium, talent is at a premium. I know Ashley and Mo have lots of things to say about this, and we want to hear your views as well. But a vast majority of the CEOs that we talk to are really worried about the availability of talent. 98% of this 3,000 senior level sample expect to change their business model in the next 3 years, and 31% are changing their business models now. We're talking about the operating model. We're talking about a business model that, that a leader might never really anticipate he or she changing. Would be very interested, with both Ashley and Mo's perspective in this, being from private companies that have been in business for such a long time, what the pressures are on the business models there. But this is pretty, startling statistics. Next slide, Erin. And I kind of want to wrap up, because we're talking largely to people leaders. We're talking about people with people leaders. There's some extraordinarily, I think, new pressures on people managers. 65% of hybrid employees say that their manager is their most direct connection to the company culture. So how do you connect with people who either are hybrid or working remote or even full-time in the office? This whole notion of balancing employees' expectations for purpose, for flexibility, for career pathing, how do you balance that with needing to increasingly perform at a higher level? That puts a lot of pressure on middle-level managers. And at Alix Partners, what we're seeing with some of our clients is that those middle-level managers are being neglected. They're not being trained. They're relying on their instincts, essentially, in how to, particularly in a hybrid environment, in how to really meet all of the needs of their employees. And I hope what we'll get a chance to talk about today is that not all employees are created equal, meaning we have 4 generations in the workforce. And what boomers need and what Gen Xers need is not what Gen Z needs. And I don't want to go off on too much of a soapbox this early in our presentation, but the social contract that some of us were assured, some of us older folks were assured, Gen Z doesn't believe that social contract exists anymore. And that's a direct challenge, not just to middle management, that's a direct challenge to senior leadership. Stress and mental health and mental well-being has never been spoken of so explicitly. And there has never been such an expectation that my employer will offer some help, support, even understanding about what I'm going through as an employee. So 60% said that and this is even above during the pandemic in 2022, they report increased stress in their jobs and an expectation of having something done about that. And then 51% of Gen Z employees said that their education had not prepared them to enter the workforce, that they hadn't been prepared for either the emphasis on digital literacy, or even working in a demanding hybrid or full-time environment, that their education hadn't prepared them well. And this is even more pressure on leadership and on senior as well as middle-level managers. So those are some findings from our 2023 Alix Partners Disruption Index. And I want to just jump in now with Ashley and with Mo. In that same study, 72% of CEOs say that their executive teams lack the agility to deal with all of this disruption. So the topic really is executive teams, agility, what to prioritize first, where to put your employees. Mo, do you want to kick us off? What's the biggest challenge facing leaders today in this whole topic of agility and managing expectations?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. That is a very true statement. I don't believe that most of organizations today, including ours, are facing lack of vision or lack of passion or even lack of resources. Yes, resources could be better in a lot of cases, but it's really the lack of agility. In the past, and that's very different than what we have today, we were able to predict the future and have some certainty on what's going to happen, predict the market, predict everything. But today, we really don't know what's coming our way. And with that, we are facing a lot of disruptions. The most important thing to remember as an organization, when you are trying to have your executive team or leadership team or anybody really in a position to lead people and improve their agility, is making them able to decide when to be agile and what does that look like. And to get started, you really need to make sure that they are comfortable enough with the whole idea of being agile in their job, and make sure that they know when to stop doing what's not going well and when to make quick decisions and react. Once you have this core principle, and this is what we did here at Omaha, establishing their mindset, it's really time for hands-on work. And you can do that by making sure that you are innovative in the way how you conduct your business, conduct your operations, make sure that you focus on what you can control. For example, for us, we know what the market look like in some cases. So we try to, be inclusive in a lot of the benefits that we offer for our employees. We try to make sure that we have our leadership team in a mindset that they can easily change direction as needed, and we offer them the flexibility. And honestly, we don't even reprimand them if they make the wrong decision, because we want them to be comfortable to do that, because at the end of the day, that's really what's going to end up helping us. And then the other most important piece that we need to focus on is we need to keep a close eye, whether it's through data analytics or really just understanding what's happening around us and what's happening in front of us. And then when we are planning, we always make sure there is a plan B and a plan C. I think, the time where you just have a main plan and you go with it, that time is long gone. You need to make sure that early on in the discussions, whenever you're coming up with a strategy, you have a backup plan in place. And one of the other things that's really beneficial for us, and it may be because of our structure, is the fact, since we are privately owned and small enough, we have that flexibility in our culture. We don't have a lot of layers of hierarchy. We are lean. We allow everybody to make decisions really quick. And I think that's very important. And large organizations in particular really need to take a look at this particular side and their organization structure to make sure it does allow for quick decisions, because they're going to need that.
Wow, Mo, that was great. That was you shared an awful lot with us, and it sounds like you're making explicit the value of flexibility, adaptability, and I might add to that emotional intelligence. We get called a lot to evaluate candidates, not just senior level executives, not just for hire, but also for promotion. And is as much in terms of the internal processes as well as external, to call out flexibility, adaptability, being willing to go to a plan B or even a plan C. Those are actually measurable traits. The ability to have empathy for employees is a measurable trait, and just calling it out explicitly raises the awareness. So, I mean, I'm not trying to summarize all that you said because it was great, but you're really emphasizing, particularly in your senior management team, the need to be flexible.
Absolutely.
Ashley, what might you add, or how do you handle things at True Manufacturing in this sense?
Yeah, so, very much like what Mo said, we really believe disruption is not an if statement, it's really a when statement. So leaders really should recognize that disruption is not going to only happen within our workplace, but also outside of our workplace. So, we say this is the age of right? And so our people are living in a work-life blend model where they're juggling multiple priorities simultaneously, both inside and outside of the workforce. And for us, disruption really equals distraction. And so if we want people to bring their whole self to work, to be focused and ready to tackle the daily challenges, we have to build in support mechanisms to allow this to happen. So, a leader's biggest challenge is keeping their team engaged and focused. And a lot can be solved or mitigated if, leaders really ask their people just a few simple questions. How are you? What do you need? How can I help? While in the digital world, we have to make sure we don't lose that personal connection with our people and that notion of servant leadership and empathetic leadership. And, really the expectations that an employee has of an employer today is vastly different. Employers are expected to provide guidance and coaching solutions for problems that are happening both in and outside of the workforce. We're also dealing with multiple generations, as you mentioned. At True, we have individuals from the age of 18 to over 70 years of age with no intentions of leaving the workforce anytime soon, which is great. So the answer to the what do you need question is going to be vastly different amongst all of those individuals. As a mother of 2 young children, I like to say, that us parents are really only as happy as our most unhappy child. And much like Mo indicated, this is why we've implemented a broad benefit spectrum to be inclusive of the whole workforce. This ranges from pet insurance, paid maternity and parental leave, to a true in-house savings account with very competitive interest rates to give our team members access to quick cash to help mitigate some of those problems. But I really encourage our CEOs and our C-suite leaders to be readily available to respond to the needs of the employees of the organization and to really listen. In order to adequately respond to change and disruption and being ready to be agile and quickly pivot in our business, we need our people, and we have to create a culture that attracts new talent and retains our company experts. So I also encourage our CEOs to ask themselves, when was the last time you asked your executives those 3 questions? How are you? What do you need? And how can I help?
Wow. How are you? I just think that, it's so simple, and yet, that it's so lacking. Thank you so much. That's so helpful, and it's so practical as well. And I find that in the work that we do, when we talk to people, particularly in a hybrid environment, they don't really know their manager, which means their manager doesn't really know them. So he or she is not asking those 3 questions. And that, again, that ties to talent scarcity. And, well, why should I stay with this organization? I don't, people leave managers, they don't leave companies, right? So if I don't know my manager doesn't know me. So there's a real, I think, heightened emphasis on the EQ of managers which is what you're saying, Ashley, the EQ of managers to connect with employees.
Hey, Ted, there's
Yeah.
actually a question that's very relevant here. Robert David asked, hiring and retaining critical workers has never been more crucial. Being an agile leader is now table stakes. Expertise is not enough. What skills or traits do you look for when hiring, retaining, or training a leader to be more agile?
Beautiful. Mo or Ashley, you want to weigh in on that one?
Yeah,
Traits for leadership effectiveness.
Yeah, I would say, just making sure that if you are looking to hire a leader or an individual, just make sure that you have a clear understanding of how they were able to change direction in the past on a short notice, or even how they were able to lead their teams during a time when the direction had to change. When you think about like even training, one of my favorites is really taking the leaders outside of their comfort zone and expecting them to work in a different area that they may not be very exposed to. Even though they're going to struggle and fail, you just provide them the resources, but at the end, you just measure their ability to really just be willing to go through that. And that's how you kind of get them to become more agile and eventually lead whenever there is a disruption.
Great. Ashley, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what Mo said, being a privately held family-owned business, we do have a lot of flexibility to pivot our people to work very easily. So, when we are seeing that there is a skill development opportunity for a current leader, or maybe a leader that is getting ready to be promoted, we have the ability to do project-based work and assign them stretch assignments that are going to really increase that skill set and also get them comfortable with being vulnerable and getting them comfortable being in a space that they may not have the full picture. And so not only do we offer a full leadership development program for our leaders, but we also offer shadowing and stretch assignment projects. For those individuals who are at higher levels of the organization, we are, really needing them to lean into and learn how to adapt to disruption. We really create time for them to, network from other thought leaders, attend executive roundtables, get advanced education, or take leadership positions within other organizations to help build that skill set to get them to be to the level that we need them to be in their role.
That's great. That's very helpful. And I would just build on what Mo and Ashley said. Traits and competencies like cognitive flexibility, which is, the ability to adapt and see new situations, see new possibilities. Emotional intelligence, which is not just empathy, but it's the ability to understand my impact on the social group, the social group's impact on me. These are all measurable competencies and traits. And so, take a look at your pre-hire processes, take a look at the development processes internally. If you have a leadership development program like Ashley does, I'm sure there are these self inventories where you get that helpful feedback and say, look, you could raise your ability to, read social interactions, and here's how we're going to help you do it. Mentoring is a very, very powerful tool around leadership effectiveness. And so that's a big question there. Cindy, thank you so much for passing those questions along. So keep doing that.
Hey, Ted, before you move on, there's one more that I think is appropriate to ask right now.
Great.
I'm from John O'Callaghan. I'm curious how leaders of multi-generational workforces are addressing today the idea of a cohesive corporate culture with so many varied voices and inputs. Let me see. Sorry. It seems trickier than ever.
Well, I happen to know the person who asked that question,
Okay.
Mr. O'Callaghan, who is a very sharp and insightful guy himself, and works with very interesting multi-generational family. So we got a wonderful panel here to ask that question to. Ashley, I'm going to go to you and then go to Mo. How do you handle the intergenerational transfer of power, particularly its impact on culture, particularly in an age of disruption?
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind here is just simply education. The first thing that we do are educating our managers on the different generations, what drives them, what's most important to them, and just different characteristics that go with each of the different generations. I remember one time I did a training session and I likened it to building the pizza, right? You have your base generation, that's the crust, you have the sauce, you have the cheese, and whatever topping it is. But the point of that matter was an educational lesson that really taught our leaders that we need all the generations in the workforce to make a cohesive culture. And there's all stuff that, multiple generations can benefit from. Also, speaking from our older generations, really putting them in a situation to be mentors and educators and teachers to our younger generations is helpful to kind of bring together that life cycle of talent and to create a cohesive structure and not necessarily a divided one. And, really, I think it also speaks to appreciation and tolerance, even teaching our team members and our leaders about unconscious bias initiatives with DE&I, and really focusing those initiatives on being holistic and inclusive of everyone that you have in the workforce.
Terrific. Terrific. You covered many, many important points. Mo, any thoughts from you on this topic?
Yeah, similar to Ashley, but I would like to add, it starts from top down. And I would say at the leadership level, it's about forcing the discussion to take place through formal meetings. And even if the discussion becomes a bit uncomfortable, but we want it to happen because we want to make sure that every single voice is heard, whether the one that's going to agree with the direction or the one who's going to push back on the direction. So that's one when it comes to making decisions and leading the different functions. But as you go down in the organization, is really making sure that we have inclusive processes in place that ensures every single employee is able to raise a concern, raise an idea, and have a voice in every single direction. And a lot of the application comes into play, especially if we are leading change. So when you think about managing the change that takes place every single day, making sure that people who are impacted are involved in the planning stages, even though they are the one who are actually executing it, and typically they may not, and giving them that voice. And you could also just have, which is something that we do, have formal processes in place, such as engagement surveys, where they take place on a regular basis and capture that feedback regularly and truly use it and communicate it back to everybody to make sure that they know that their voice is heard. Because the more you ensure that everybody knows that their voice is heard, it actually becomes, just really who you are, and everybody starts raising their hand.
So both of you are, I mean, you're giving us, great insight around kind of almost practical tools, right? Inclusiveness, allowing people's voices to be heard, the use of mentoring. It seems to me like you're really saying there's a set of core values in my company, and my employees are almost testing me to see if I'm going to act in line with those core values. Would that be a fair statement?
Correct, absolutely. In fact, in our core values, we even called out inclusion being one, and making sure that your voice is heard is one. And employees, absolutely, they are sitting and watching us.
Yeah, yeah. In our work with companies, I find, particularly in younger generations, but not only, but in younger generations, there is a kind of in a positive way, this testing of like, okay, you say you stand for these things. You say you stand for these values. Now, pardon the expression, Mo, where's the beef?
Yeah.
Where I want to see proof of this. And I kind of know that I'm kind of know that I'm a rare asset. I know you got to really, as talent, you got to make sure that you're, so prove to me, that I'm, that I can kind of dedicate myself and my working hours to your company. Ashley, do you find that?
Yes, I do. And I think, when it comes to multi-generations, I think there's a couple of things too that go along with exactly what you're saying, Ted. But, I think I really encourage our C-suite leaders to really examine, when you look at your C-suite positions and when you look at your leadership positions, are you well represented within the generations of those individuals, that are holding those positions? Because not only are you, putting forward in a very outward way the inclusivity that you're trying to achieve within the generations, but you're also getting that diversity of thought. So, when you're wanting to make sure, very much to Mo's point, that everyone's heard, that everyone feels like they have a voice, that everyone can give input, we really need to practice what you preach. And as he said, it does start at the top. Something as simple, right, from a cultural perspective, if you say, we value our hybrid work model. We want to make sure our people have appropriate work-life balance. Then really it's up to our executive team and our leaders to make sure that they themselves are using those policies. They themselves are not sending a slew of emails over the weekend to their people with the expectation for them to respond. So it's really important that we model the behaviors that we want our people to have, because they are constantly watching us to see if it's really okay or if it's really a core value of the company.
Great point. That's a great point. I don't want to overdwell on this, but I do want to spend just a minute longer on the notion of, multiple generations in the workforce and how to best understand their expectations for leadership. And if both of you maybe could just speak to that, either, kind of what you're seeing generally, or you can focus on a particular generation. So for example, Gen Z is at about 43% of the all employees in the United States right now. And in a couple of years, they're going to cross the 50% mark. In our own research at Alix Partners, we've seen that from the end of World War II till about 1980, wage and productivity lines are basically identical. And then after that, they start to bifurcate. Wages do not keep pace with productivity. And this and a lot of other facts are leading Gen Z folks to say, as I said at the outset, am I going to have the life that my parents had? Basically, is the social contract in the United States going to work for me? And you see this significant or gradual and significant rise in an interest in an endorsement of socialism over capitalism, which is very concerning. So it's very clear that this generation couldn't be more different than the boomer generation. And boomers are still in the workforce. And the Wall Street Journal a few days ago ran an article about boomers that are never going to retire. So talk to us, Mo and Ashley, a little bit about drilling down. How do you take care of those generations, either from a retention, development, attraction, development, or retention perspective? Ashley?
Yeah. So, from a Generation Z perspective, just kind of starting there, I believe those individuals are about age 13 to 27 currently right now. And, a big focus for us of this generation is really the marketing, the opportunity in the manufacturing environment, because those individuals coming into the workforce, don't necessarily see manufacturing as a viable career, right? They're more focused on other items such as social media platforms and, more of that digital technology. So when we think about, that generation, we think about marketing the fact that that manufacturing is a very technology centric, lucrative type career. And we will start marketing that to individuals, even in the elementary and middle school type perspective, because we are always trying to get ahead of when they do turn 18 and decide to go into the workforce. We have got to build that story, which is true, that manufacturing is a very technology focused driven career that they can have. So for us, while there are different things that drive the different generations that we work towards every single day, our notion with generations even starts before these individuals even get into the workforce.
That's a great discussion and insight into managing your talent pipeline. Essentially, you're really looking kind of early in the pipeline. Mo, your thoughts on that same question?
Yeah, I would say, the idea that we all need to be on the same page and, face reality. And the reality is this new generation are expecting something new from organizations today, and they will expect something new in the future, and that is different than what it used to be. If we accept that and we truly embrace it, each organization, and we are doing this, we need to take a deeper dive on how we operate and how we can potentially innovate and adjust some of our processes to make manufacturing or really any other industry appealing for some of these talent that's out there that may not just raise their hand and say, hey, I want to be part of that. It needs to be appealing to them. It needs to check some, not all, but at least some of the boxes for them. And then the other part is you're really just making sure that there is a presence, and make sure that organizations are embracing the idea of promoting an employee or hiring a leader that may not check every single box. And what I mean by that is, you need to, value alternate credential and make sure that the profile of candidates you are looking to hire today, it's not going to be the same as what you were hiring in the past. And it's okay to take a chance on some individuals as long as you offer them the right resources and the right support system. Because unfortunately, if you don't take a chance with somebody from outside or somebody from the inside, you're going to come to a time, and this is something you can predict about the future, where you have no talent knocking on your door and you have nobody internally who's developed enough to be able to lead your organization when everybody else retires. So it's either you do it now or you do it later. Now time is in your favor if you want to really take a step ahead and be flexible.
Hey, Ted, I'm going to throw out one more question that I think relates to this discussion from Lex. Related to this, what mechanism are you using to listen to your employee base today, and how often?
That's a great question. So the topic is employee engagement and employee listening. We're all familiar with a variety of tools and surveys. Some are better than others. Ashley and Mo, how are you getting the data to know what's on the minds of your employees? What tools do you use? What processes do you use to do that?
So for us, I can start here. There is formal ones that we use third-party providers to maintain the confidentiality and the comfort of people, to make sure that they know that they can just share whatever they want to share without fear of anything. And we do that on a regular basis, at least twice a year. I think the most important step there is really what happens next after we capture that data. And what we do is we actually have like small group sessions with people from all over the organization. This could be production, hourly employees. Not only we share with them the results of their function and the common themes, but we also seek their feedback on what action plans they think should take place to address those concerns. And then once we come up with a couple action plans, we actually take that a step further and communicate that back to the organization, and we make it a KPI for really all of the leaders and everybody, and we track progress on it. So capturing their feedback and also making sure that they have a voice in coming up with actions. And we do that twice a year at minimum.
Great. Great. Ashley?
Yeah, very much like Mo, we do group settings to get feedback. We call them our employee involvement meetings, and they happen on a quarterly basis with our hourly and our salaried staff, both domestic and globally. This is actually a randomization of people that are picked to participate in this in-person group setting. Or of course, virtually, if they're in another country or in another facility. And it is really just a dialogue between the team members and senior level leaders who are responsible for different functions, so that they can bring up their concerns, ideas, and challenges and get real-time feedback from the leaders that are in charge of those functions. Of course, not everything can be solved depending on the level of the problem in that particular hour-and-a-half session. But there is a follow-up mechanism in place that we make sure that all of the action items are taken care of, and the entirety of the meeting format is shared with the organization. In addition to that, we do anniversary surveys at least annually, and the team members are asked a variety of different topics, whether it's, do you have the tools you need to do your job? Do you feel like you work in an inclusive environment? How the leadership is of your team, how the camaraderie is with your team members. And we take all of that data and we quantify it and we share it out with our leaders on also a quarterly basis. And we have certain thresholds that we've established for ratings that would be considered kind of a red, yellow, green zone type rating system. And then obviously we celebrate those wins as to what's going right in those green zone type facilities, and have those leaders speak to what they're doing to achieve those results, and then come up with action items for those that are in those yellow and red zone type quantified areas, and come up with support for that leader, but then also an action plan as to how we're going to hopefully correct it in the next quarter's data.
Terrific. That's absolutely terrific. I'm keeping an eye on the clock. Cindy, are there any other questions you want to put forward? Otherwise, I've got a burning question I want to put to Mo and Ashley, and it might kind of take us up to our close.
No, I'll make a comment. There is a question about AI, and could you use AI in terms of keeping a real continuous and real-time pulse on employees? But but that's a big in-depth subject, right? So go ahead and ask the question that you wanted to ask. And just so everybody knows, next week, Steve Hunt and Megan Alzik are going to be talking about AI, and they can address this AI question. Okay.
Great. Great. So Mo, you put your finger on something a few moments ago around going to non-traditional sources of recruiting, right? We're still in a war for talent. The unemployment rate still hasn't budged. And, places like Google are like almost doing away with resumes. They put you through a skill test now. And even more traditional organizations like State Street, even banks they're letting go of the necessity four-year college education, right? They're focusing on skills rather than resumes. And I think net that's a good trend. But if you, Ashley and Mo, can talk to us a little bit about how are you solving the scarcity of talent? What non-traditional sources are you looking at, and how are you coping with that? Ashley, you want to kick us off on that question?
Sure. So, being a family-owned, business, speaking of talent, we're particularly passionate about creating an environment and culture that is a people-first focus and provides employment and career advancement opportunities for individuals at all skill levels. So tapping into these roots, it's important to us to be actively involved and supporting the community in which we operate. So when we think of building a community specific to talent, we think of building this as a community of culture, not only within our organization, but it's equally as important to build the community outside of your organization. And when we marry these two things together, we really create a pathway for an untraditional talent sourcing strategy. And it's really helped us at True meet three objectives. First is retention measures with your current employees. It increases engagement and instills a sense of pride with employees, that the organization is investing in the community in which they live and work. Obviously fills your recruiting for current talent needs, but builds a pipeline for future needs. Specific to the topic of underutilized and alternative staffing solutions, we've developed partnerships with a variety of organizations ranging from work reentry programs for justice-involved individuals, those with disabilities, JAG program, that's Jobs for America's Graduates in high schools, and transformational programs for new mothers, amongst many others. So our most successful partnership has been with an organization focused in providing employment opportunities for those with disabilities. We've hired over 40 individuals who have positively contributed to our production needs, and these individuals have a higher retention than that of our traditional workforce. So we really, set them up for success and our leaders up for success by giving them advanced training and also providing mentoring opportunities through our current team members of these individuals.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Mo, your perspective?
Yeah, very similar to Ashley. What I would say is when when we say that we are home for everyone, we truly mean that. And a couple of things that we have done, which is similar to Ashley, partnering with local organization and trying to get that diverse talent in, because we believe that the more diverse talent, or the more people look at us as home for them, the higher and bigger talent pool we're going to have. We actually, for example, eliminated all background checks, and we did that by design. We wanted to make sure that everybody is given an opportunity. Of course, we kept those for certain jobs where we absolutely must have them. And that is a perfect example of something that we would not have done in the past, but because of where we are, we know where we are heading, we had to do something like that internally. We gave opportunity to people to raise their hand to go and upskill and learn different other jobs, and make sure that they get an opportunity to earn more money internally by doing something else that pays more, which is again something that forces us to adjust how we conduct our business, and we are okay with that. These are the things that we must do today in order for us to remain competitive.
Terrific. Terrific. Well, the phrase walk the talk comes to mind, that you both are just, kind of shining examples of, companies where if you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're going to see your people walk out the door, and you both are really holding your management teams accountable for doing what they say they're going to do. I think we're almost there. Cindy, do you want to say anything?
So when you say we're almost there, are you ready to wrap up?
Unless there's some other questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there is. I want to just say that thanks, Mo, for answering the question on AI. Our next Thought Leadership for May forum is next week, and again, Steve Hunt and Megan Alix will be talking about how to use AI in a lot of different things. Okay, so but Mo did answer that in chat, and they're using some of that at Omaha Packaging. Thanks everybody for being here. Does anyone have any questions at all before we sign off? And if not, we'll give everybody back about 5 minutes. And a big thank you to Ashley and Mo and Ted. You are amazing. Really great event. Thank you so much for doing this for everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. This was terrific. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Aaron.
you.
Actually, seeing Erica's, and she's still in, but you know Erica, don't you?
I do.
She's amazing too.
She's great. I actually just saw her yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, believe it or not. And while I was in the session, I was getting emails from her as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So I think she's going to be at that event next week. in
Great.
St. Louis, okay.
Good.
And Donna Kimmel's still on the line. I don't know if she's listened to this, but if she is, she's in another amazing CPO. She was the CPO of Citrix.
Okay.
And she's in our board program, but she's amazing. But thank you so much for
Sure.
participating in this. You were awesome. I meant it. You're a rock star. All
Oh,
the stuff
thank
you guys
you.
are doing. I'm thinking to myself, we did that too. We went out in the grade school to start developing that relationship so they'd
Yeah.
come to work for Enron. And
Yeah.
I'm listening to you thinking, oh my gosh, I want to spend more time with you.
Our biggest competitive advantage right now with our elementary school age children is our robot that we take that makes them individualized keychains that they can
Oh,
keep
wow.
with our
wow.
name on them so they don't forget us. So we're just really trying to make manufacturing sexy and cool, you know?
Yeah, that's better than what we used to do. We used to go try to teach them finance. And they'd rather learn about robots, right?
You know, you never know. You might find a future accountant in there somewhere who really loves it.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, I'll see you next week. Okay.
Sounds
Thank you
great.
so
Thanks,
much.
Cindy.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.